grande piacere per me essere qui alla prima edizione di questa importante manifestazione voluta dall'Enoteca regionale del Barbaresco, di cui mi onoro di essere il presidente, per promuovere il nostro vino, il nostro territorio, la nostra terra, in Italia e nel mondo. Espressione Barbaresco è un evento che abbiamo creato e organizzato con l'obiettivo di raccontare ogni anno una speciale unica annata di questo vino che merita di essere conosciuto e degustato con cura e attenzione, e che vedrà l'investitura di una figura autorevole del panorama enologico come testimonial ufficiale, il quale avrà il compito di portare il messaggio della nuova annata del Barbaresco nel mondo. Per questa prima edizione abbiamo scelto di dare voce all'annata 2016 del Barbaresco 2CG, che si preannuncia come un'annata straordinaria, ricca di eleganza, di fascino, carisma, caratteristiche che meglio raccontano e descrivono anche la testimonial che abbiamo scelto per questo evento, come la voce del Barbaresco 2016, di cui sarà il testimonial. La protagonista di questa prima edizione è la giornalista e scrittrice enologica Kerin O'Keefe, autrice del libro Parole Barbaresco, che tra poco inaugurerà ufficialmente la manifestazione e ci condurrà alla scoperta di questa annata 2016. Voglio innanzitutto ringraziare il castello di Neive e l'ingegnere Italo Stupino, che pregherei di venire per un breve saluto, che ci accoglie in questa affascinante e bellissima struttura che fa da palcoscenico all'intera manifestazione. Dopo visiteremo anche il castello, quindi vedremo le sue cantine storiche. Prego, ingegnere.
Buongiorno, sono molto contento di poter parlare in italiano, avevo già paura di dover parlare in inglese per i fuori quindi poi Isao lo conosce molto bene, anche tu lo conosci molto bene. Comunque benvenuto da parte della famiglia a tutti voi, è una delle poche volte che possiamo radunare dei personaggi così importanti e sono molto lieto che qui ci sia Kerin, che ti conosce da molto tempo, che apprezziamo molto tempo. Io posso dire altro che per buon lavoro e soprattutto sono molto contento che questo si faccia in questa cantina, la cantina nostra dove c'è stato l'inizio della lavorazione del biolo secco da parte del consulente del quadro di Masterclass, che ha lavorato qui e ha fatto le prime sperimentazioni e le prime lavorazioni. Noi ci siamo permessi di offrire, mi pare ci siamo, abbiamo dato un libretto, quei libretti, ci sarà un libretto dell'America di Italiani che ha fatto una ricerca sull'Urale e poi c'è un altro libretto che è una conferenza che l'ha fatto l'Urale nel 1800 e su, non mi ricordo più quanto, comunque in quel periodo. Signore, buon lavoro e soprattutto il vino che mi ha fatto qualcosa di allievo, bisogna to enjoy. Buona giornata e buon lavoro.
La persona presente a questo tavolo è il nostro collega giornalista Giancarlo Montaldo, esperto di vini, che da sempre lavora con passione in questo campo, che è uno storico presidente dell'Enoteca, vorrei ricordarlo, e che ci dà un contributo nell'organizzazione di questa giornata e poi farà fare il tour dei gruppi. Infine un ringraziamento al Consiglio che se ne sta un po' in disparte e alle nostre donne dell'Enoteca, al nostro personale che ha lavorato intensamente per questa cosa, insieme a tutti noi. E come sapete in questi casi c'è sempre un po' di ansia, è la nostra prima e quindi qualche problema e paura ce l'avevamo. Infine un ringraziamento agli sponsor. Questa manifestazione si svolge su 2 giornate e domani sarà presente il salumificio Raspigni, i bicchieri Spiegherao e direi basta, che tutte le iniziative vogliono rafforzare comunque l'identità del nostro territorio e vogliamo proseguire in questa strada anche nei prossimi anni, quando sceglieremo un altro testimonial per le successive annate. Quindi questa è un'iniziativa che apre, almeno nelle nostre intenzioni, un ciclo. Grazie a tutti voi di essere qua e in particolare ancora una volta un ringraziamento a Kerin che ha accettato. E allora vorrei proprio investirla come voce del Barbaresco 2016. Abbiamo preparato
stupendo, perfetto, grazie, bellissima.
È un naso di fiore.
Grazie, questo
lo lasciamo magari.
Grazie, perfetto. Grazie. Vabbè,
Ok, già c'è. Anche adesso io aspetta un attimo, prendo il microfono. Ok.
Grazie, veramente sono davvero onorata di ricevere questo bellissimo incarico di essere la voce di Barbaresco. Sono veramente quasi emozionata, anche la sala, tutto bello, veramente. Quindi oggi siamo qui per parlare. I should be speaking in English, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Very honored to receive this wonderful honor to be the voice of Barbaresco. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to Italo Stupino and his family for opening up their beautiful home to us, because the tasting room is just amazing. So we're here to talk about the Espressione Barbaresco. And when we talk about that, we're talking about all the different facets of this wonderful, wonderful growing area. And as you know, we're going to see some history, and then we're going to get into the tasting. But we decided for the event to focus on the different crews. As you know, there are 66 crews, MGAs, the Menzione Geografica. We'll see more about that. Just a word about the tasting. We'll be starting each set on the left. So the left will be number 1, the right will be number 6. Okay. So we're going to be tasting 18 different, most places would be calling them subzones, but here the official name is Menzioni Geografiche Aggiuntive. Here's a picture, I think, of just shows the beauty of Barbaresco, the hills and the beautiful vineyards with the tower in the background. It's actually just a beautiful growing area. As you can see, Barbaresco is separated from the Barolo growing area by the city of Alba. So it's a little bit small, but Barbaresco is to the north and east, whereas Barolo is to the west and south. So we are in, as you all know, the Langhe Hills. Barbaresco is located in southern Piedmont, in the Langhe Hills that spread out around the town of Alba. Langhe means tongues of land in Celtic. The original formation began 36 million years ago. The hills are composed of sedimentary rock from the Oligocene and Neogene epochs. And the most significant geological event for the Langhe is the Piedmont Tertiary Basin, which is responsible for the significant amount of marls that the area has. 5 million years ago, the seismic activity thrust the land up, the submerged land, and formed what are now the Langhe Hills. So some key points about the whole Langhe area, which also comprises Barolo. The soils are mainly marls, which are calcium and clay, calcium carbonate and clay layers, and sandstone in varying amounts. The area lies between the Maritime Alps and the Apennines of the Italian Riviera. It has a continental climate with hot summers and generally cold winters. There's also, of course, some changes going on all over the world with the climatic changes, but in general, it is still a continental climate, hot summers and cold winters. The area boasts a number of different microclimates due to the varying ridges and hills. And the day and night temperature changes are crucial for Nebbiolo during the growing season. Here's some Barbaresco history. The name comes from when the Romans conquered the local population. They would call anyone who wasn't Roman barbarians, and they named the whole wooded area, which is now Barbaresco, Barbarica Silva. In 1799, we have the oldest written reference to Barbaresco as a wine-making area. When the Austrian commander had beat the French, he demanded the commune of Barbaresco send their great Nebbiolo. But the official birth year of Barbaresco is 1894. That's when Domizio Cavazza, who was the first director of the Scuola Enologica of Alba, he had already purchased land and vineyards in the Ovello area, and then he purchased the castle in 1894. He united 9 growers at the time and founded the Cantina Sociale del Barbaresco, which was a cooperative. Everything was going very well, and then in 1913, Cavazza, the father of Barbaresco, died. And then the entrance of Italy into World War I in 1915, production basically ground to a halt. And after hanging on for a few years, in 1922, the Cantina Sociale closed, and only a handful of growers continued to make Barbaresco. I do want to stress, though, that before 1894, Barbaresco was known as a great area to grow Nebbiolo. There's not a lot of information, but it's assumed that the grapes that were grown in Barbaresco ended up in Barolo before 1894. More Barbaresco history. After years of basically no production with a handful of just very few growers, producers, in 1958, the local parish priest, Don Fiorino Marengo, created the Produttori del Barbaresco Cooperative. He reprised Cavazza's goal of uniting the growers and resuscitating what was once the original cooperative cellar, obviously not in the castle, but where it is now. In 1966, Barbaresco becomes one of the first DOC-regulated wines. In 1980, Barbaresco became one of the first DOCG-regulated wines. And in 2007, the Italian Parliament authorized the official vineyard zoning for the first time, starting with Barbaresco. So after years of careful delimitation, the MGA, the Menzioni Geografiche Aggiuntive, aka subzones, are authorized and are allowed to be added to labels. This was a benchmark, this was a milestone, not just for Barbaresco, but for Italian wines. And the total number of MGAs in Barbaresco is 66. Yes, there are 6 more that have been recognized, or delimited, but not officially authorized. But there are another 6. And they've never been used, so there you go. Okay, so the Barbaresco growing zone, as we said, is northeast of Alba. And it spans 3 villages: Barbaresco, Neive, Treviso, and the Alba hamlet of San Rocco Senovelio. The whole growing area of Barbaresco is influenced by its vicinity to the Tanaro River. This generates the warming morning temperatures during the growing season that accelerates grape maturation when compared to Barolo, for example, and the harvest is normally at least 1 week earlier than Barolo. Some more key points on Barbaresco. The soils are predominantly the bluish-gray marls of Sant'Agata Fossili Formation, as well as lighter-colored marls that alternate with beds of sand from the Lecquio Formation. The vineyards for Barbaresco cannot be situated on valley floors and cannot be above 550 meters. That's very important because some areas today, 763.19 hectares registered to Barbaresco. That's not very much. 249.19 in the Barbaresco village.
Okay.
280.62 in Neive, 186.89 in Treviso, and 46.49 in San Rocco Senovelio as of December 2018. So these are very fresh statistics. The total bottles, again as of 2018, 4,804,880. It's about a third in terms of vineyard extension and volume when compared to Barolo. Obviously, Barbaresco must be 100% Nebbiolo. And now we're here to talk today specifically about the 2016 vintage in Barbaresco. And I'm really thrilled that I was nominated Voice of the 2016 because it really is a fabulous vintage. An excellent vintage for Barbaresco. In terms of climate, it was a classic vintage. So you had a cool, rainy spring that gave water reserves to the soil that were much needed after the 2015 vintage, which was very hot and dry. Despite the rain in the spring, due to the stage, because they had a warmer winter, and due to the stage that the vines had already reached in the vegetative cycle, the plants remained healthy. They did not suffer from any of the diseases that can often come with wet weather. The summer started late, but it lasted until the end of September, with no heat spikes, but very good day-night temperature changes. One of the longest, latest harvests in recent years, with Nebbiolo lasting through the first half of October, even longer for some people. So that's really a blast from the past, because in the recent years, the harvest has been pushed to the end of September, the beginning of October, so this was a very late harvest. The Barbaresco 2016s boast complex aromas, good acidity, they have good fruit, balance, impressive structure, and extreme elegance, and great aging potential. So here is the official map. I brought this off the Consorzio's site of the Menzioni Geografiche. And now we're going to get right into the tasting, and we're going to be starting with the village of Treviso. And the first wine we're going to taste is the, you have the list here, is the Pertinace Nervo. And just a little information for you about the Nervo vineyard. Location Treviso, exposure is mostly south-southwest. Altitude is 220 to 360 meters above sea level. And they're known for full-bodied wines with they're known for elegant wines that in some vintages can be nervous, even austere in their youth. So this has 40 to 60 days total fermentation and maceration, and they're aged for 18 months in large Slavonian casks. And I think it really expresses that nervous tension that Nervo is known for. And I'm just going to say a word about the way I organize the tasting. It also goes not just with the vineyard and the subzone, but also the winemaking, because you can have a very elegant vineyard, but you can, or a vineyard that produces very elegant wines that may come after another one that usually, another vineyard known for more structured wines, but winemaking played a role here in my decision of how I organize the tasting.
Do you think that's why it's called Nervo?
Yeah, a lot of people say that, Nervo, because it's always a little nervous, it has nerve, and it could be. I don't really know, but I know that's how I often think of it, and I know a lot of producers explain it like that. We're now going to move on to the second wine, Rombone. And this is from Fili Luigi Odero. The Rombone vineyard is also located in Treviso, mostly southwest exposure. The altitude is 180 to 320 meters above sea level. And Rombone is known for full-bodied wines with structure, tension, and finesse that also can be slightly austere in their use. They ferment in inox, so steel, and then they age in large capacity botte. Again, one of the things that I write in my notes a lot for the 2016 is this tension that's on the wines and this lovely intensity. The third wine is Cazot, and it's by Giuseppe Nada. Cazot is, of course, in Treviso, mostly southwest exposure. Altitude is 230 to 360 meters. And they're known for also making wines with firm structures, but also a certain elegance. The affinamento, the aging, is in 10 hectoliter Elier casks and also larger casks of 30 and 40 hectoliters. It has that firm structure, but I think the tannins are definitely noble. And I think all the wines we're trying so far are showing that they really will do well over time. The fourth wine is Paiore. And this again is a vineyard located in Treviso. Exposure is mostly west and southwest. Altitude ranges from 190 to 350. And Paiore is known for classical barbarescos that combine structure and finesse. And the wine we're trying today is Rizzi. They're located 300 meters, right in one of their best parts. And they age in Slavonian oak casks. You know, the vintage definitely reminds me of vintages, you know, cooler climate vintage. And I'd like to ask one of the producers, do we have any producers in the house here? Giuseppe. Scusa Gabriele, from Giuseppe Cortese. What would you, do you have a vintage that you think is similar to 2016 in mind?
Ooh, good. Let me see, probably on my judgment can be similar to 2008, something like this.
2008, yeah.
So something that's remind really the classical impostation of Nebbiolo.
Right.
So deepness,
Yes.
complexity,
Yeah.
nice structure, without to be too generous vintage.
Right.
So we really stride on.
Yes, very linear.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me, it's similar to 2008,
Yes.
probably.
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. The next vineyard area we'll be trying wine from is Meruzzano, and this spans the area, the town of Treviso and Alba. So it would be San Rocco. So here we have the vineyard that spans both areas. It's mostly west and south exposures. Altitude is 245 to 495, so quite high. And it's known for producing very linear, vibrant wines with firm structures. This is aged partly in French oak cask. Still rather tight, but I think it's going to have a very long life ahead of it. The next one and the last in this series is Montalcino from the Montalcino crew. We'll be trying San Biagio. Again, this is Treviso and Alba. It spans the two communes. The exposure is mostly south to southwest. The altitude of Montalcino ranges from 220 to 420, and known for wines that range from racy and linear, and they can also be more solid and assertive. This is one of the crus that's a little bit difficult because of the wide range of altitudes, and as well as different winemaking styles. It's a little bit more difficult to give an exact characteristic. This one I think is pretty racy and linear, but it has great structure. It's aged in tonneau of 500 and 700 liters. Do you want a few more minutes to go back and try the wines, or would you like to move on right away to the next set? A few more minutes? Sure, take your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Maybe a few more minutes.
Sure, yes. Treviso, because of the vineyard altitudes, tends to produce the more of the elegant, linear styles of Barbaresco. So these generalizations, it's always difficult because it always depends also on the producer, the grower, but in general, these are the more linear and elegant of the Barbarescos of all the villages. Now, I know some of you tried the 2016 back in, I believe it was January, and I bet the wines are showing differently now. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a much better time to be trying these wines.
For the number 6, how did you say it was aged?
In tunnel, 500 and 700 liter tunnel. I'm going to ask my colleague, Giancarlo, what did you think of the first round of tastings for the 2016 vintage?
Allora, io credo che per quanto riguarda l'annata, hai già detto molto, è stata un'annata di grande equilibrio. Io sono autore di una carta delle annate da 10 anni e racconto le annate in modo molto schematico, e a questa annata ho attribuito un punteggio piuttosto elevato. Adesso se riesco a recuperare.
Definitely, I think we can see that 2016 has a lot of energy, a lot of vibrance, and that they are wines that you aren't really going to be able to lay down in your cellar. But because of the tannins, I mean, they're present, but they're refined. So I don't think you're going to have to wait 10 years before you can enjoy these. And that's one of the biggest changes that has happened in Langhe, is that what they do in the vineyard, as well in the cellar, but mostly in the vineyard, the tannins are more refined than they would have been 20 or 30 years ago for sure. Ecco Giancarlo.
Sì, no, dicevo che nella mia classificazione delle annate del Barbaresco il 2016 è uno con i punteggi più elevati, ho dato 19 punti su 20 e io normalmente accompagno il punteggio tecnico con un punteggio, diciamo così, più emozionale, e l'ho chiamata esuberante come annata. Dal punto di vista invece dell'andamento climatico, io personalmente divido le annate in 3 categorie: prevalenza di freddo, prevalenza di caldo ed equilibrio tra caldo e freddo, e in questo caso abbiamo un'annata di equilibrio tra caldo e freddo. Per quanto riguarda questa prima batteria, direi che i vini sono molto omogenei, molto coerenti tra di loro. Forse i 2 che si staccano un po' di più sono il 4 e il 6, che trovo già leggermente più evoluti in positivo, soprattutto nella parte cromatica, e rispecchiano il tipo di terreno che esiste in quella fascia, dove c'è una netta prevalenza di calcare rispetto all'argilla e chiaramente alla sabbia. Noi di sabbia abbiamo poche infiltrazioni, mentre invece man mano che andremo avanti, spostandoci in direzione nord, andiamo verso le marne bluastre, e allora lì avremo maggiore presenza di argilla.
Thank you. Okay, so if everybody could please dump your glasses out, we'll start with the next service. One of the things that I've noticed in the last just 8 or 9 years is the amount of wine lovers who now come to Barbaresco. More and more people are coming here for the wine, of course for the food as well, but I can remember when I first started coming to Langhe in the early 90s, most people wouldn't work so hard. Everybody who's involved with it really works so hard, and it's always crowded. And it's been, I think, a big help in promoting Barbaresco. So we're going to move on to the area of Neive. Of course, that's where we are now. I'm going to wait just a minute because I know we all don't have the wines. Neive has in basically 2 areas where you can make, where the wines pretty much, there is more clay, other areas have more sand. The area more towards Barbaresco tends to produce more structured wines, and the areas with more sand tend to produce the more elegant wines. So, prego.
Ultimamente stiamo arrivando a individuare, fino a qualche anno fa parlavamo di 2 grandi zone, marne di Sant'Agata fossili e formazione di Lebbio. Oggi stiamo arrivando a individuare anche una parte, diciamo, più nella posizione verso nord, quindi l'ultima parte di Barbaresco e di Neive, con situazioni un po' diverse, e cioè un tortoniano superiore con delle marne di Sant'Agata fossili lamellate che hanno una maggiore quantità di argilla, quindi danno vini più corpulenti.
That's very interesting. Yes.
Poi oggi con
Oh, great. Oh, good. We'll be seeing that on the tour. Yes, because people tend to think Neive, some people think, oh, they make very big structured wines. Other people will tell you they make very elegant wines. They do both. And again, we always have to take into account the work that they do in the cellar as well as the vineyard. But such generalizations can be risky. But Neive does have these areas where you can get extreme elegance and other areas where you have really important structures. And we're so lucky today that we have a beautiful day out there, because if this was 2 days ago, we would not be going in the vineyard. In fact, there's probably going to be some mud. Yeah.
Ieri ho fatto il giro e c'è ancora piuttosto da calpestare.
So hopefully you all brought your mud shoes, your vineyard shoes.
Nei vigneti inerbiti si può andare, in quelli non inerbiti no.
We want to go to the ones that are inerbiti. Okay, I think everybody probably has the first wine. So we're going to start talking about the Bazarin vineyard. Again, it's located in Neive. The exposure is southeast in some sections, south to southwest elsewhere. Altitude is 210 to 370 meters, so it's got quite a wide range. And it's known for vibrant, structured wines that can range from precise and linear to more solid and assertive. I think Bazarin, some people still waiting for Bazarin? Does everybody have the first glass ready? Okay. Bazarin was once considered more suitable for Dolcetto years ago, but I think different clones and also the change in climate has definitely changed that, and it's proving to be a very interesting area for Nebbiolo.
Kerin, do you happen to know what the soil is of this specific area?
For this specific area? Ma tu lo sai?
Praticamente sì,
È proprio Marta.
formazione di lettuce.
Ah, formazione di lettuce, sulla formazione di lettuce.
Prevale il calcare. Invece più giù verso Gallina, Mesano è molto simile a Barbaresco.
So this is aged in medium-sized casks. I believe Slavonian. So the producer says that he has the classic, a lot of also the classic Marna Grigia. So there are definitely the Sant'Agata marls here as well in this particular vineyard. The next wine is from the Gallina vineyard, and this is Odero. Gallina is mostly southeast to southwest. The altitude is 170 to 250 meters. And these wines are known, Gallina, for combining fullness, finesse, and focus. It's probably one of the most famous vineyards in Neive. And this is actually aged in 40 hectoliter Volte. The tannins are definitely there, but they are noble. So it does have an elegance and structure. Giancarlo, how many people have Galena, do you think?
Come numero di aziende credo che vinificano da 10 a 12.
Da 10 a 12, ok. Yeah.
Cioè è una delle menzioni geografiche più utilizzate.
Esatto, ok, yes. The third wine is from the Serragrilli vineyard, again located in Neive. Exposure is mostly southeast and west. Altitude is 210 to 270. And this vineyard is known for its bright, refined wines. The wine we're going to taste today is from Marchese di Barolo. And they age in large Slavonian casks and barriques, both. They also, after fermentation in steel, leave the wines in cement before they go into wood. And the cement is actually lined, the concrete tanks are actually lined in sugaro, cork, which is a very unusual procedure that they've come up with.
What do you think? Why?
I think he thinks it stabilizes it better before it goes into wood. It's a very unusual process.
Right.
Okay. And again, it's actually aged in both large Slavonian casks and barrique. Actually, Robin, I think the main reason they do that is they think it helps with the malolactic fermentation to come spontaneously. I think that's their main goal before it goes into wood. But again, they're the only people I know who do that. But the wine is quite taut and linear, very bright. The next wine is another one of the hallowed vineyards in all of Barbaresco. It's the Albesani vineyard. The location is here in Neive, pretty much right where we are. The exposure is mostly southwest. Southwest as well and west on the edges. The altitude is 160 to 270 meters. And Albesani is really known for producing structured wines, very structured wines that can be austere in their youth and that boast great aging potential. And the Albesani vineyard is also home to probably one of the most famous single vineyards, Santo Stefano. And the wine we'll be trying today, number 4, is from Castello di Neive. And they age this wine in large French casks, untoasted, of course. This is still very young. I think we can tell that this is going to have a great life ahead of it. It does have impressive structure, but it is, again, these tannins are very present, but they're very refined. It's got a great licorice finish, which I'm really finding very interesting. The next wine is from the Fossoni vineyard, Neive. Exposure is west to southwest and in one very small area southeast. Altitudes are 200 to 270 meters. And they're known for producing robust but focused wines that again can be austere when young. And this is from the producer Silvia Rivella. She actually has the malolactic start in wood, small wood, and then she ages in barrique as well, the malolactic and the aging. I think all the wines so far are really expressing the vintage very well. They're all expressing this intensity, this energy, this vibrance, and this elegance. Even though some of them are at this stage a little austere, that's very good for Barbaresco that we want to age. I can remember when I first started wine writing, austere was a word that scared people, but it's actually very appropriate for these wines. So. Acidity used to scare people too. I remember some of my first editors did not want me to use the word acidity. So things have changed, thankfully, as people really start to appreciate these elegant, vibrant wines, and all of them are just screaming out for food as well. So, okay, the last wine is Questa. Again, we're still in Neive, of course. This has a mostly west to southwest exposure. Altitude is 180 to 340 meters. And these are known for, this vineyard is known for producing tightly knit wines with very firm but noble tannins. And the wine we're going to be trying now is from Sottimano. Sottimano has just been recently become certified organic, and that's another very interesting development that we're seeing in Barbaresco, and of course in much of Italy. There's a big trend to abandon harsh chemicals in the vineyards, and there are several different programs. Some people are going right for organic, other people are going for a sustainable certificate called Green Experience, where they're just really trying to keep everything as sustainable as possible in the vineyards and in the cellar. Andrea uses the PSA barrique from Borgogna, and 15% are second, third passage. I'm sorry, 15% are new, and 85% are second, third, fourth passage. So they're used, for the most part, used barrique from Burgundy. They were new when he bought them, obviously. They're used by him. They're seasoned by him. This wine, I think, is really going to have a long, long life ahead of it. It's quite austere at the moment, but extremely elegant. It has a great structure. So again, I think we've also seen the differences in Neive that go from more elegant to more structured and austere. And Neive, to me, is a fascinating village because it has all these nuances. I'll give you a few more minutes to spend time with the wines, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or Giancarlo, who will be taking us today into the vineyards. And Giancarlo, will we be seeing some of the vineyards that we've been trying today?
Credo che li vediamo tutti. Sì.
That would be great.
Facciamo un tour molto, allora vedremo tra questi sicuramente vediamo Albesani, Gallina, su Gallina faremo tappa proprio, vedremo Bordini, San Giuliano, San Cristoforo, Gaia Principe, Currà, Cottà, e poi magari salendo verso Barbaresco vi faccio vedere anche gli altri. Quello che è difficile per noi è vedere dal singolo paese i cru del singolo paese.
Yes,
cioè,
that's true.
molto spesso è più facile andare nel paese,
Yes, exactly.
nel paese vicino per vedere i cru del paese accanto.
Yes, exactly. I can remember when I wanted to see the vineyards at Albino Rocca, we got in the car and drove to Sottimano. And I thought, why? But then she showed me from a distance, you can really see the steepness, the inclination, you can see it much better. So I can imagine we'll be doing some of that today.
Per esempio, una delle più belle viste di Monte Stefano, che è di Barbaresco, questa grande collina che si allunga nella valle, la si vede da Gallina. Si vede anche diciamo da Barbaresco, però si vede una zona molto piatta, perché si vede un lato solo della collina, mentre invece da Gallina si vede tutto il contorno della collina.
I'm really looking forward to the vineyard visits later, absolutely.
E poi oggi vi portiamo a vedere le Rocche dei Sette Fratelli, che è il più grande calanco di tutto il territorio delle Langhe, che è combinazione sul tragitto che faremo da San Rocco Sinodello a salire a Treviso.
Great. I've seen pictures, but I've never actually been there, so that'll be great.
Grandissimo.
Yes. So Eleonora has asked me to explain how I chose the wines. Basically, there were 66 producers, at least 62 to 65 producers who wanted to participate. So they sent their wines in to the Enoteca of Barbaresco, and I came in on the 16th and 17th of April. And I told them I have to do this blind, so they put them in bags, and I tried them all. And I wanted to pick, and the Enoteca wanted as well, that I choose only one producer for one. We had to choose 18. We thought this was enough Otherwise, you'd be here for 2 days. But we did, I chose one producer and one crew and divided it into 3 villages. So that's how we came up with this, I think a very expressive lineup for the vintage, for the area. But that's why some people, you might have wondered why they weren't in or why they were out. Some people preferred, for some reason, they thought maybe their wines weren't ready. Some people actually hadn't bottled yet. So only about 62 or 4 wineries sent the wines in to participate in the Masterclass. And we really wanted to focus on the cruise, the menzioni geografiche. And that's how that came out to be. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so if everybody can perhaps, if you're ready, we can dump the wines. Anybody need a little more time? You guys good? Okay, we'll start just dumping the wine and get ready for the final part of our tasting, which will be the village of Barbaresco. Quite a few people last night asked me why Produttori del Barbaresco crews weren't in, and that's because the Produttori del Barbaresco, with their single vineyard bottlings, their crew bottlings, they only make the Reservas, which won't be out for another 2 years. So generally speaking, the village of Barbaresco tends to make the most structured Barbarescos. It's, of course, what the denomination is named after. And it has some of probably the most recognizably famous crew names.
Se vuoi posso raccontare come siamo arrivati alle menzioni geografiche, perché il progetto che era partito negli anni '80 presupponeva la selezione dei migliori vigneti attraverso quelle che si ventilava che fossero le aree più diciamo il riferimento legislativo più logico, e cioè la sottozona. Nel 1992 è uscita la legge 164 che istituiva le sottozone come riferimento di una parte più piccola della zona di origine, e la sottozona era per noi considerata il riferimento specifico. Quando poi noi abbiamo fatto tutto il nostro lavoro di delimitazione, i comuni della zona del Barbaresco hanno lavorato, io allora ero direttore del consorzio Parole Barbaresco ed ero sindaco di Barbaresco, e ho fatto da trade union con i vari comuni per arrivare a una delimitazione. Vedete che nella zona del Barbaresco la delimitazione delle menzioni è molto omogenea. Quando abbiamo approvato queste 72 per noi sottozone, quando questa domanda è andata prima a Torino alla Regione e poi a Roma al Ministero l'hanno bloccata, perché dicevano che le nostre erano sottozone troppo piccole. Noi non potevamo, l'unica soluzione che avevamo era di fare delle sottozone per il singolo comune. No, non aveva senso, no? Ma nella nostra concezione originaria di rispetto dell'origine noi avevamo dei riferimenti di territorio molto più piccoli di quelle che erano le propensioni o le idee dei ministeriali, e in quel momento poi sono venute fuori altre esperienze di sottozone, non so, Nizza per quanto riguarda la Barbera d'Asti, Nizza con gli Astiani, eccetera eccetera, ma erano situazioni differenti. Cioè il nostro è una zona che ha 3 comuni e una piccola parte di frazione di San Rocco Senodelvio, non poteva fare sottozone. E allora la nostra domanda è stata bloccata per 4 anni, e in questi 4 anni abbiamo discusso, alla fine abbiamo trovato nei meandri della legge 164 la menzione geografica aggiuntiva, che noi non avevamo mai presa in considerazione, perché per noi erano sottozone. Ma perché erano sottozone? Perché noi continuiamo a pensare che questi possono essere tutti vini differenti, e cioè con una denominazione di riferimento barbaresco, ma potrebbe in futuro potrebbe venire fuori una regolamentazione più rigorosa, per esempio per la Baia piuttosto che per Gallina, e allora questa potrebbe diventare, come è diventata Nizza una DOCG, poteva diventare una DOCG a sé stante. Questo percorso non è stato possibile, quindi le nostre non potranno mai diventare denominazioni a sé stanti, sono semplicemente dei riferimenti di origine. Questo per colpa di un legislatore ottuso. Questo è quello che penso io. Ma vi dico di più, l'arrabbiatura che noi abbiamo avuto è che 7 di queste menzioni inizialmente non sono state accettate. Tra queste c'era Ronchi, perché le 6 che poi vi faccio vedere quest'oggi non sono state accettate perché non sono mai state utilizzate. Però successivamente in tutte le altre denominazioni dove è stato fatto il percorso della menzione geografica aggiuntiva hanno accettato tutto, solo nel barbaresco hanno fatto queste discriminazioni. Quindi noi abbiamo queste 6 menzioni geografiche. Io ogni tanto sollecito il consorzio che prenda carta e penna e pretenda che anche queste 6 vengano. Ma la cosa più grave era Ronchi, e Ronchi era iscritto addirittura sul catasto napoleonico come riferimento. C'era un funzionario al Ministero dell'Agricoltura che non l'accettava perché esisteva Ronchi Varesini e Ronchi di Brescia, che sono 2 IGT, e diceva che Ronchi poteva trarre in inganno il consumatore. Abbiamo dovuto aspettare un anno e mezzo che questa signora andasse in pensione e poi siamo arrivati a Ronchi. Questo è il quadro. Per cui noi siamo molto legati e siamo orgogliosi che le menzioni geografiche, il barbaresco sia stato il primo vino ad avere le menzioni geografiche, perché noi abbiamo sempre creduto più nell'origine geografica che non nel vitigno o in altre cose.
Grazie Giancarlo. E infatti Piemonte, cioè soprattutto Langhe, Parole e Barbaresco hanno sempre usato questi nomi dei vigni, cioè in altri posti, altre denominazioni stanno arrivando solo ora, ma non sono nomi storici per la grande parte. Qui invece nomi tipo Rabaia, tipo Gallina, tipo Asili sono sempre storiche, cioè la gente diceva oggi vado in Rabaia, oggi vado in Asili, erano proprio posti specifiche, quella parte della collina specifica, e probabilmente avete già sentito come inizialmente hanno sempre individuati questi grandi cru, era proprio dopo la nevicata, il primo zona dove, I'm sorry, I'm speaking in in Italian, I'm sorry. I was saying that, you know, here in Piedmont, Langa, they've always had these place names for the hillsides. They would say, I'm going in Rabaya, I'm going in Asili. Other denominations are just starting to do that now. Barolo and Barbaresco have always done that. Probably there was some influence from the French years ago under Napoleon, or maybe it was just because winemaking here is so historic. But the original classification for these vineyards was when, after a snowfall, you would see the snow melt first on the south-facing vineyards, and for them that was the best cru. So that's how the whole concept was actually born. Okay, so we're now going to go and talk about the vineyards in Barbaresco. And the first one is the one that Giancarlo just mentioned, Ronchi. It's mostly east and southeast exposure. The altitude is between 190 and 290. And it's known for firmly structured wines with great aging potential. And we are going to be trying Albino Rocca, and they really are the ones that, in my opinion, put Ronchi on the map. They are actually aged in large German and Austrian oak, 20 hectoliters. And their soil is a classic calcareous clay and the marls. Angelo Rocca was one of the first in the area among the pioneers to start using rotary fermenters and barriques. But then about 8 or 10 years ago, he switched to the large casks, and he wanted to use the German and Austrian. And I think the wines have really improved immensely, in my opinion. They've always were great, but I think now you're getting a purer expression of Nebbiolo. And again, you have that nice juicy fruit as well as great structure.
Do you know if they still use rotary fermenters?
I think they do, but I'm not sure. But the big change really came with the change in oak. You know, rotary fermenters for Nebbiolo, if you set them up appropriately and they're very soft and gentle, it can work really well. It's you just have to make sure they're not being used violently. So you can really do a good job as long as it's not a violent, quick fermentation. If you slow it down, they do fine. Cavallotto, yes, is one of those. He uses them very slowly, very softly. Okay, the next wine is going to be from the Pora vineyard, and the producer is Musso. Again, we're of course in Barbaresco. The exposure is west to southeast and south to southwest. And it's 170 to 255 meters above sea level. And it's known for full-bodied structured wines that really age with great complexity. He ages in large casks, 50 hectoliters. So this particular vineyard has actually limestone and clay where he's located. The third wine is probably from one of the most famous vineyards, Rabaya. Exposure is west to southwest in the central area and southwest in other areas. 235 to 315 meters above sea level, and it's known for producing full-bodied, structured wines with firm but noble tannins. And the wine we're trying today is Giuseppe Cortese. And they age in Slavonian barrels from 17 to 25 hectoliters. Very traditional winemaking. So Gabriele, limestone and clay is mostly what you're finding in the Rabaya vineyard, correct? Yes. Well, you can really get the structure and great Nebbiolo fruit on this as well. The next vineyard area, Asili, is also extremely famous, and it is very close to Rabaya. Now, this has west to south exposures. Altitude is 200 to 290, and the wines are known for boasting extreme elegance and fragrance. Asili also has a good component of sand in parts of it, which helps with that elegance. The wine we're going to try is Michele Chiavolo, and he ages in French oak from 7 to 20 hectoliters. The elegance is there, it's very tight right now. The next vineyard area is Monte Stefano. The exposure is mostly south and southeast. Its altitude is between 175 and 265 meters, and this is actually known for producing some of the most full-bodied and solidly structured wines. And with certain winemakers, they also display fantastic finesse. So you really have a very structured Barbaresco from Monte Stefano. And we're going to be trying La Canova. And they actually ferment with no selected yeasts and no temperature control. And they age in large Austrian oak. And you have a mix of calcareous and clay soils, which is the reason a lot of it for this structure. And of course, exposure. That has impressive structure. Yeah. Again, I can see this aging for a very long time.
What was the aging?
Large Austrian oak. Are we going to Monte Stefano? We are, or we're going to be seeing it. Già andiamo a Monte Stefano e Montefico anche.
Allora, Monte Stefano e Montefico sono due colline parallele. Tutte e due hanno il versante dominante che è quello sud, con una piccola possibilità di spaziare anche verso il sud-est e l'est. La parte di collina che va invece verso nord, più evidente in Monte Stefano che in Montefico, è utilizzata per altre coltivazioni, in particolare se c'è coltivazione evitata, dolcetto, chardonnay, barbera, oppure sono nocciole.
Okay, our last wine for the series today is from the Martinenga vineyard. Its exposure is west, south, and southwest. Altitude is 190 to 270 meters, and is known for focused, firmly structured wines that can be austere in youth, but also extremely elegant. And the aging is in both French barrique and Slavonian cask. Again, part of my choice for how I organized the tasting was also based not just on the vineyard area, but also on the winemaking. I think we can all get that this is youthfully austere, which again is a good thing, but it's also extremely elegant. In fact, they haven't released this yet. They know that this needs a little more time, but they did present it. It has been bottled for a while, and they did present it to the tasting. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Geograficamente, ma perché non è stato Barbaresco del comune di Barbaresco del comune di...
Ma semplicemente perché in quel momento non era sentito. So che in questi anni i produttori stanno discutendo, probabilmente in prospettiva arriverà questa possibilità, però negli anni 90, quando eravamo a discutere delle menzioni geografiche, delle sottozone, non avevamo preso in considerazione perché non sembrava una soluzione ottimale. Oggi, alla luce di quello che ha fatto il Barolo con le menzioni di comune, quello che ha fatto per esempio anche il Roero, credo che stiano discutendo, è probabile che nei prossimi mesi o anni venga fuori questa novità. Il Barolo è arrivato nel 2010, 3 anni dopo. Sì. Ma perché loro avevano più discussioni interne nei vari paesi, mentre invece noi siamo stati fortunati prima di tutto perché la zona è più piccola e poi perché c'era minore campanilismo nei nostri paesi, tra di loro nella zona del Barolo. Io l'ho vissuta anche in quella fase lì, c'era più una posizione più, c'era chi voleva fare le menzioni più grandi, chi le voleva fare più piccole, noi eravamo tutti più orientati nel fare menzioni. Per esempio, se avessimo voluto fare una menzione grande, mettevamo insieme Asili, Rabaià e Martinenga, lo chiamavamo tutto Rabaià e facevamo una menzione grande, però non aveva senso nel rispetto della storia e della tradizione.
Diventava come Bussia.
Sì, diventava come Bussia, esatto. È proprio l'esempio.
Bussia era proprio quello che volevo parlare. Bussia is one of these vineyards that they used to have. Bussia Bassi, these different areas of Bussia that have all disappeared, and some, I really think Monforte d'Alba lost some wonderful vineyards in the mergers that they did, because there were some other great vineyards that have disappeared now. Perno, for example, and a few others have all been incorporated into others. I also would like to just mention that, as Giancarlo said, with Barolo, it was very long and very heated because you have 11 townships, so it was just much hotter, many more producers. But on another note, I wanted to also stress that I also tasted many of the straight Barbarescos, the Barbarescos without the geographic mentions, and they too are showing absolutely beautifully. Really, they're not as austere as the Cruz, in my opinion, but they're really showing beautifully. And of course, for many, many years, that was in Barolo and in Barbaresco, the tradition was to blend from different areas. So the 2016s from there are very, very, the 2016 Barbarescos with no geographic mention are also really fantastic. Before we stop, I just would like to make, I have to do just a few thank yous here, because I want to thank the president of the Enoteca, Massimo Caniggia, and I want to thank the vice presidents Iole Della Piana and Gabriele Occhetti. I also want to thank the consiglieres Francesco Versio, Simone Amario, Matteo Paola, Corrado Menardi. Thank you guys so much. And a big thank you to the girls from the Enoteca, Marisa, Giusy, Camila, Antonella. Come on in, girls. Come on, please. Everybody at the Enoteca has worked so hard for this event, and they put their heart and souls into it. And it was really, I think they've done a wonderful job. I also want to thank Italo Scupino and his family for opening up this beautiful tasting area for us, this beautiful sala that they've turned into our tasting room. I also want to thank, of course, Giancarlo Montaldo for being here with me today. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank Roberta, our translator, who's done a phenomenal job. And finally, we have to say a big thank you to our sommelier team. They were fantastic. Sommeliers, really, thank you. You guys have been fabulous. Thank you so much. And finally, I want to thank everybody who came here today to participate in this tasting. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to fire away.
Io volevo fare una nota per oggi pomeriggio. Oggi pomeriggio ci muoviamo con un pulmino, però sarà fondamentale che io vi possa parlare 10 minuti prima di salire sul pulmino, e ci troveremo magari qui, per fare un'inquadratura globale della zona, in modo che poi non siamo costretti a ripeterci sulle varie cose. Quindi inquadriamo la zona nell'ambito di Langa e Roero, dopodiché saliamo in pullman, cominceremo dai cru di Neive, poi passiamo a Barbaresco, poi scendiamo a San Rocco Senotelio e risaliamo a Treviso e poi torniamo qua.
I have one other thank you. I want to thank my husband Paolo for coming with me today and helping me out so much with everything, being such a support. Thank you, Paolo.
visto che abbiamo fatto un po' prima del previsto, anticipiamo la visita alle cantine, poi seguirà un catering e così ci sarà tutto il tempo dell'anteprima del tour del crew. Grazie a tutti.
Invece dalla scuola.